The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, causing every screen in Earth's Space Command to flash with urgent priority alerts. The Galactic Council, after decades of watching humanity from afar, had finally extended an invitation for Earth to join their ranks. But there was a catch. They wanted to see humanity's best warship. Captain James Walker stood at the window of his office, looking at his ship docked in the massive space station above Earth. The TNS Prometheus didn't look like much from the outside. Most people mistook it for a cargo hauler, with its bulky frame and odd-looking sections sticking out at strange angles. He smiled, remembering how many times other captains had tried to direct his transport ship to the civilian docks. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called out, turning to face his visitor. "Sir," said Tom, his first officer, holding a tablet. "The Council's requirements just came in. They want us to present the Prometheus as Earth's flagship at the Council station in 3 days." He paused, looking worried. "The alien ambassadors will be there, all of them." Walker took the tablet, reading through the message. His eyes stopped at one particular line. "They want a full inspection of our combat capabilities." He laughed softly. "Well, that should be interesting." The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. The crew of 400 worked around the clock, making sure every system was perfect. Unlike the sleek, crystal-shaped warships of the Crystal Confederation or the massive dreadnoughts of the Stellar Dominion, the Prometheus looked like it had been built from spare parts. In a way, it had been. On the morning of their departure, Admiral Thompson called Walker to his office. The old man looked tired but determined. "James, you know what's riding on this. The Council. They're expecting something impressive, something that fits their idea of what a warship should be." Walker nodded. "And we're going to show them something completely different. The future of Earth's relationship with the galactic community depends on this presentation," Thompson continued. "Are you sure the Prometheus is ready?" "She's ready," Walker said firmly. "They might not understand her at first, but they will." The jump to the Council station took 20 hours. Walker spent the time walking through his ship, talking to his crew. In the engine room, engineers monitored the unique power systems that made the Prometheus special. In the Combat Information Center, operators ran final checks on the ship's adaptive defense systems. Every person on board knew that they were about to show the galaxy something it had never seen before. The Council station came into view like a massive silver flower blooming in space. Hundreds of ships surrounded it, each one representing a different alien civilization. Walker could see the distinctive designs, the organic curves of the biological collective's vessels, the geometric perfection of the Mathematics Alliance's ships, and the imposing black hulls of the Stellar Dominion's war fleet. As the Prometheus approached its assigned docking position, the comm system crackled. "Human vessel," a voice said in carefully translated English. "Please confirm your identity. Our sensors show you approaching the military dock, but your profile matches civilian transport classification." Walker smiled at his communications officer, who was trying not to laugh. "This is Captain James Walker of the TNS Prometheus, Earth's flagship. We are proceeding to our assigned berth as directed by Council Control." There was a long pause. "Please repeat, TNS Prometheus. Did you say flagship?" "Confirmed, Council Control. The Prometheus is Earth's most advanced warship." The silence that followed was even longer. Walker could almost imagine the confused aliens at their control stations, looking at their sensor readings and wondering if this was some kind of joke. Finally, the voice returned, sounding distinctly uncertain. "Understood, TNS Prometheus. Please proceed to Dock 17. Council representatives will meet you there." As they moved toward their assigned dock, Walker watched the other ships on his display. Several had changed position to get a better look at the Prometheus. He knew what they were seeing: a ship that broke every rule of their traditional warship design. No visible weapon ports, no armored hull plates, not even the standard engine configuration they all used. "They're in for quite a surprise," Tom said from his station. Walker nodded, watching as the docking clamps engage. That they are, Tom. That they are. The Council Station's main observation deck was packed with aliens of every shape and size. They pressed against the huge windows, whispering among themselves as they watched the Prometheus dock. Many had brought scanning devices, and their confusion grew as they tried to make sense of the readings they were getting from the human ship. Admiral Blackcrest of the Stellar Dominion stood at the front of the crowd, his black scales reflecting the station's lights. He turned to face the gathered representatives, his voice filled with disbelief. This must be some kind of mistake. Perhaps they sent a cargo ship ahead of their real warship. Behind him, the Prometheus finished docking. Its hull was a patchwork of different materials, with what looked like shipping containers attached at odd angles. Compared to the gleaming warships around it, it looked like something built from leftover parts. Captain Walker and his team of 5 officers walked through the airlock into the station. They wore simple blue uniforms without any fancy decorations. The alien delegates stepped back, creating a path through their midst. Some wore expressions of pity, others tried to hide their amusement. "Welcome to the Council Station," a tall, silver-skinned official said, stepping forward. "I am First Speaker Reed. We were expecting something else." Walker smiled and shook the offered hand like appendage. "Thank you for having us, First Speaker. I assure you, the Prometheus is exactly what Earth wanted to present to the Council." A harsh laugh cut through the murmuring crowd. Admiral Blackcrest walked forward, his ceremonial armor clicking with each step. "This is an insult to the Council. Look at this thing you call a warship. Where are its main gun batteries? Where are the armor plates? I don't even see proper shield generators." "With respect, Admiral," Walker replied calmly, "not everything is what it seems. We would be happy to demonstrate the Prometheus's capabilities." The gathered aliens started talking all at once. A representative from the Crystal Confederation, his body glowing with internal light, raised his voice above the others. "Yes, a demonstration. Let us see what this unusual vessel can do." First Speaker Reed held up his hands for silence. "Captain Walker, would you or your officers join us in the council chamber? We have many questions about your ship's design philosophy." They walked through the station's curved corridors, aliens falling in behind them like a colorful parade. Walker could hear them talking about the Prometheus, making guesses about its capabilities. None of them came close to the truth. The council chamber was enormous, with seats rising in circles around a central platform. Holograms floated in the air, showing different views of the Prometheus from every angle. The aliens took their seats, many leaning forward with interest as Walker and his team stood on the platform. "Captain," First Speaker Reed began, "perhaps you could explain why Earth chose to send this particular vessel as a representation of your military capabilities." Walker looked around the chamber, meeting the curious and skeptical gazes of the alien representatives. "The Prometheus represents everything humanity has learned about warfare over our long history. We built it this way for a reason." "But it has no visible weapons," a delegate shouted from the upper rows. "The best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't see coming," Walker replied. Admiral Blackcrest stood up, his scales darkening with anger. "This is ridiculous. I've commanded warships for 300 cycles. That thing couldn't last 5 minutes in a real battle. Those container-like structures would be torn apart by the first hit." Walker's smile didn't waver. "Would you like to test that theory, Admiral?" The chamber went quiet. First Speaker Reed leaned forward in his seat. "Are you proposing a combat demonstration, Captain Walker? If the Council wishes to see what the Prometheus can really do, we would be happy to oblige. Perhaps a controlled exercise against automated drones." The Crystal Confederation representative jumped to his feet, his body pulsing with bright light. "We will provide the drones. Our latest combat models. Surely you don't object to a proper test of your vessel's capabilities." Walker looked at his officers, who all nodded slightly. "We accept. When would you like to begin?" "Immediately," Admiral Blackcrest growled. Let's settle this now." As the council chamber erupted in excited discussion, Walker caught his first officer's eye and winked. Soon, they would show these aliens exactly why looks could be deceiving. The testing arena was a massive sphere of empty space 10,000 kilometers from the council station. Holographic markers outlined the boundaries, glowing red against the black of space. Inside this sphere, the Prometheus waited, looking even more out of place among the sleek combat drones that surrounded it. In the council station's observation room, hundreds of aliens watched through the giant windows. The Crystal Confederation's representative stood next to Admiral Blackcrest, both looking smug as they adjusted the drone control settings. "We've programmed the drones with standard combat patterns," the Crystal being explained, his body flickering with blue light. "Nothing too difficult. We wouldn't want to embarrass our new friends too quickly." Earth's diplomatic team watched nervously from their section of the room. One of them, an older man named Robert, pressed his hand against the window. "Captain Walker, what were you thinking accepting this challenge?" Inside the Prometheus, Walker sat in his command chair, looking perfectly calm. His crew worked at their stations, their movements unhurried and precise. "All systems ready, Captain," Tom reported from his post. "The drones are powering up their weapons." "Good," Walker said. "Let them make the first move. Keep our adaptive systems in passive mode for now." The first wave of drones moved forward. They were beautiful machines, their hulls made of some kind of crystal that seemed to bend light around them. They flew in perfect formation, their movements synchronized like dancers. "Human vessel," Admiral Blackcrest's voice came through the comm. "These drones are armed with training weapons. They will simulate damage without causing actual harm. Do you wish to surrender now and save yourself the embarrassment?" Walker pressed his comm button. "That's very thoughtful of you, Admiral. But we'll take our chances." The drones opened fire. Beams of energy streaked across space toward the Prometheus. The alien observers leaned forward, expecting to see the human ship try to dodge or raise some kind of shield. The Prometheus did nothing. It just sat there as the beams hit its hull. "Direct hits," someone shouted in the observation room, but then they fell silent, confused. Where the beams struck, the hull seemed to ripple like water, absorbing the energy without any sign of damage. "Interesting defense technique," the Crystal Confederation representative said, his glow dimming slightly. "But let's see how it handles multiple attack vectors." He pressed some controls, and the drones split into 3 groups, attacking from different directions. Inside the Prometheus, Walker nodded to his weapons officer. "Time to show them something new. Deploy Adaptive Array 1. One of the cargo container-like structures on the ship's hull suddenly split open. Inside was not cargo, but a complex array of smaller devices that spread out around the ship like a web. As the drone attacks came in, these devices intercepted the beams, not just blocking them, but somehow redirecting them back at the drones. In the observation room, Admiral Blackcrest's scales had turned a pale gray. "Impossible. They're using our own weapons against us." The Crystal being quickly adjusted the drone patterns. "Let's see how they handle this." The drones began moving erratically, firing from random positions while spinning and weaving. Walker smiled. "They're getting creative. Tom, let's show them what else we can do. Deploy arrays 2 and 3. More sections of the ship opened up, revealing different types of defensive systems. Some created small gravity wells that threw off the drone's aim. Others released clouds of tiny mirrors that split and scattered their energy beams in all directions. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as their supposedly primitive human ship systematically neutralized every attack the drones made. Not only was the Prometheus defending itself, but it seemed to be doing it with less effort each time, as if it were learning from each attempt. "Captain," Tom reported, "the drones are regrouping for another attack run. The adaptive systems have analyzed their pattern recognition software. We can predict their next 17 possible moves." Walker leaned forward in his chair. "Well then, perhaps it's time we showed them that we can do more than just defend ourselves." He opened a channel to the observation room. Admiral Blackcrest, first speaker, honored representatives. Would you like to see what our ship can really do when it stops playing defense? The silence that answered him was broken only by the sound of Admiral Blackcrest's ceremonial armor creaking as he gripped the observation rail too tightly. The council station buzzed with excitement as the Prometheus began to move. Those odd bulges and containers that everyone had mocked were changing. Panels shifted, sections rotated, and what looked like random pieces started connecting in new ways. What are they doing? Admiral Blackcrest demanded, his scales now almost white with shock. Ships aren't supposed to change shape like that. Inside the Prometheus, Walker walked through the ship's corridors, heading to the heart of their vessel, the Adaptive Control Center. The walls here were covered with flowing patterns of light, showing real-time data from every part of the ship. His crew worked at their stations, their movements quick and confident. "Show me what we've learned about their drones," Walker said as he entered the center. The room's main display lit up, showing detailed scans of the crystal drones. "Sir," said Lisa, his chief engineer, pointing to the display. "Their weapons are impressive, but they follow strict patterns. The ship's AI has already mapped out their programming limits. They're like dancers who only know one dance." Walker nodded, watching the complex calculations scroll across the screens. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship, it was humanity's greatest experiment. While other species built bigger guns and stronger shields, humans had asked a different question. What if a ship could learn? "Their drones are regrouping for another attack," Tom reported from his station. "They've added some new attack patterns, but nothing our systems haven't seen before." The crystal drones spread out in a new formation, their weapons charging. This time, they moved in a complex spiral pattern that would have confused traditional targeting systems. But the Prometheus wasn't traditional. "Let's show them something interesting," Walker said. "Activate the mimicry systems." On the council station, aliens gasped as parts of the Prometheus's hull suddenly turned crystal clear, looking exactly like the attacking drones. The copied sections perfectly matched the drone's material properties, making the ship partially invisible to their sensors. "That's impossible," the Crystal Confederation representative shouted, his body flashing with agitated light. "They copy our photonic crystal technology just by looking at it." Admiral Blackcrest slammed his fist on the control panel. "They're adapting to everything we throw at them. This isn't how space combat is supposed to work." Back in the Adaptive Control Center, Lisa showed Walker the latest sensor readings. "The ship's learning algorithms are working better than we expected, sir. We're not just copying their technology. We're improving on it." The walls of the center displayed more data as the Prometheus analyzed everything about the drones, their flight patterns, weapon frequencies, shield harmonics, and even the quantum states of their crystal structures. With each passing moment, the ship's AI grew smarter. "Sir," Tom called out, "the drones are trying to jam our systems now. They're using some kind of quantum interference pattern." Walker smiled. "Perfect. Let them try. Every new attack just teaches us more." The jamming signal hit the Prometheus, but instead of disrupting their systems, the ship absorbed the pattern, analyzed it, and added it to its growing database of tactical knowledge. The ship's adaptive hull rippled with new configurations, each one tested and improved in microseconds. In the observation room, the alien representatives watched in silence as their most advanced drone systems failed to affect the human vessel. Some began to understand what they were seeing. Not just a ship, but a new way of thinking about space warfare. "Look at these readings," one of the technical advisors said, his tentacles waving at his display. "Their ship isn't just defending itself. It's learning, evolving. Every moment we fight it, it gets stronger." Walker looked at his crew, proud of how far they'd come. The Prometheus represented years of human innovation, built on the simple idea that the best weapon wasn't the biggest or strongest. It was the one that could adapt to any situation. "I think it's time," he said to his crew. "Let's show them what we can really do." Prepare all adaptive systems for full combat demonstration. As the ship's systems powered up for their first real display of offensive capabilities, Walker opened a channel to the Council station. "Admiral Blackcrest, I believe you wanted to see our weapons. Well, we've learned quite a bit from your drones. Would you like to see what we've done with that knowledge?" The crystal drones hung motionless in space, their formation perfect and deadly. In the Council station's observation room, the Crystal Confederation representative input the final attack patterns with shaking hands. These were military-grade combat sequences, far more dangerous than the simple tests they had used before. "You've had your fun playing defense," Admiral Blackcrest growled into the comm. "Let's see how your strange ship handles real combat protocols." He turned to the other observers and spoke quietly. "Now we'll see this human trick fall apart." Inside the Prometheus, Walker stood at his command station, watching the tactical displays with calm interest. The ship's AI had finished processing all the data from the previous attacks, and new configurations were ready. "Sir," Tom reported, "they're powering up all drones to maximum combat settings. These aren't training weapons anymore." "Good," Walker replied. "Time to show them why we built our ship this way. Lisa, bring all adaptive weapon systems online." The Prometheus's hull began to change again, but this time it was different. All those strange bumps and containers that had confused the aliens started to make sense. They weren't random at all. They were pieces of a puzzle waiting to be solved. Sections of the hull peeled back like flower petals opening to the sun. What looked like cargo pods split apart, revealing complex weapon systems unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Each system was built from lessons learned in countless Earth wars, redesigned to work in space. "First wave incoming," Tom announced as the drones launched their attack. This time, the Prometheus didn't just defend. As the drones approached, the ship released a cloud of tiny devices, each no bigger than a coin. The aliens watched in confusion until these small objects suddenly created a web of energy between them, forming a maze that the drones had to navigate. "Interesting trick," Admiral Blackcrest said, trying to sound unimpressed. "But our drones can easily." He stopped as the drones began crashing into invisible barriers within the maze, their perfect formation breaking apart. The Prometheus wasn't finished. Parts of its hull that had copied the crystal technology now fired beams that matched the drone's own weapons exactly, but with subtle differences that let them slip right through the drone shields. "Impossible," the Crystal Confederation representative shouted, his body pulsing with angry red light. "They've improved our own weapon designs." Walker's voice came through the calm and professional. "As we said, the Prometheus learns. Every attack teaches us something new. Would you like to see what else we've learned?" The ship's next move left the aliens speechless. It released what looked like simple missiles, but as they flew toward the drones, they changed shape and color, perfectly matching their targets. These copies flew right up to the real drones and suddenly created small, controlled gravity wells, pulling the drones into each other. In the observation room, the technical advisors were frantically taking notes. One of them, a being made of pure energy, spoke up. "Their ship, it's not just copying our technology. It's understanding it, improving it, and combining it in ways we never thought of." Admiral Blackcrest slammed his hand on the control panel. "Launch all remaining drones, full attack pattern." The last wave of drones shot forward, weapons blazing. The Prometheus waited until they were halfway to their target, then did something that made several alien observers faint. The ship split apart into multiple sections, each piece moving independently but connected by beams of energy. The drone's targeting systems couldn't handle the sudden change, their shots passing harmlessly through the gaps. "You see," Walker explained over the comm, his voice carrying the hint of pride, "we humans learned long ago that the strongest warrior isn't the one with the biggest weapons. It's the one who can adapt, who can learn from every fight, who can turn an enemy's strength into a weakness." The separated sections of the Prometheus began to move in a complex dance, each piece firing improved versions of the drone's own weapons. One by one, the crystal drones fell silent, disabled but not destroyed. In the sudden quiet, First Speaker Reed's voice came over the comm. "Captain Walker, I believe we've seen enough. Would you please join us in the council chamber? I think we have much to discuss about humanity's place in the galaxy." The council chamber was so quiet you could hear the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Every alien representative sat frozen in their seat, staring at the holographic replay of the Prometheus's combat demonstration floating in the center of the room. Walker stood on the speaker's platform, his uniform still crisp despite the intense battle they'd just finished. Behind him, the hologram showed his ship reassembling itself, the separated sections smoothly sliding back together like pieces of a puzzle. Admiral Blackcrest was the first to break the silence. "I've commanded warships for 3 centuries," he said, his scales now a thoughtful shade of blue. "I've seen weapons that could crack planets, but I've never seen anything like this." He paused, then asked the question everyone was thinking. "How?" Walker gestured to the hologram. "Look at Earth's history. We spent thousands of years fighting each other, but our biggest victories never came from having the largest army or the most powerful weapons. They came from adapting, from thinking differently." The hologram changed, showing the Prometheus's internal systems. "Every part of our ship can change its purpose. Those cargo containers you laughed at, they're filled with nanomaterials that can reshape themselves based on what we need. The irregular hull, it's covered in sensors that learn from every hit we take." The Crystal Confederation representative leaned forward, his glow now a curious purple. "But the way you copy our crystal technology, that should have taken years of research." Lisa, Walker's chief engineer, stepped forward. "Our ship's AI doesn't just copy what it sees, it understands the principles behind it. When we saw your crystal drones, we didn't just mimic the shape, we figured out how the crystal structure manipulated energy, then found a way to improve it." A hologram zoomed in on one of the ship's adaptive sections. "See these patterns?" Lisa pointed to the flowing lines on the hull. "They're like neurons in a brain. Every time we face a new weapon or technology, these patterns change, growing new connections. The ship literally learns from experience." A representative from the Mathematics Alliance, a being made of pure geometric shapes, floated forward. "This goes against every principle of warship design. A ship should be specialized, focused on one type of combat. That's exactly why we went in the opposite direction," Walker explained. "In nature, the most successful creatures aren't the strongest or the fastest. They're the ones that can adapt to any situation. We built the Prometheus on that principle." Tom, Walker's first officer, brought up new data on the hologram. "During the battle, we didn't just defend against your drones. We learned from them. Each attack taught us something new about crystal technology, energy weapons, shield harmonics. The longer a fight goes on, the more we learn, and the stronger we become." The council chamber erupted in excited discussion. Alien representatives argued about the implications of this new approach to warfare. Some looked frightened, others fascinated. A few were already taking notes, clearly hoping to copy the human design. First Speaker Reed raised his hands for silence. "Captain Walker, your ship represents something we've never seen before. You turned a combat demonstration into a learning experience. Instead of destroying the drones, you studied them, improved upon them, and showed us something entirely new." Admiral Blackcrest stood up, his scales now showing bands of respect gold. "I came here expecting to see a primitive weapon. Instead, I saw the future of space combat. A ship that treats every battle as a chance to grow stronger, to evolve." He looked around the chamber. "The humans haven't just matched our technology. They've shown us a whole new way to think about it." Walker smiled as he watched the aliens starting to understand. The Prometheus wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's way of showing the galaxy that sometimes the best way forward isn't to follow the established path, but to create your own. There's an old saying on Earth, Walker said, addressing the whole chamber. "The best way to win a fight is to make sure it never happens. The Prometheus isn't designed to destroy enemies. It's designed to understand them. And understanding," he gestured to the diverse crowd of alien representatives, "is the first step toward peace." The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was different. It was the silence of a galaxy realizing that humanity might have more to teach them than they'd ever imagined. 3 days after the Prometheus's demonstration, the Council called for a final vote on Earth's membership. The Great Chamber was packed with representatives from every spacefaring race in the galaxy. The excitement in the air was almost electric. Walker stood with his crew near the center platform, watching as first speaker Reed called the session to order. The Prometheus could be seen through the chamber's massive windows, docked alongside the most powerful ships in the galaxy. But now, no one was laughing at its unusual appearance. "Before we vote," first speaker Reed announced, "Admiral Blackcrest has asked to address the Council." The Admiral rose from his seat, his scales now showing a pattern that indicated deep respect in his culture. "When the humans arrived, I thought they were primitive. I was wrong." He turned to face the entire chamber. "Their ship changed everything we thought we knew about space warfare. But more importantly, it changed how we think about progress itself." The holographic displays activated, showing images from the combat demonstration. "Look at what they achieved," Blackcrest continued. "While we focused on building bigger weapons, they created a ship that learns. While we tried to overpower our enemies, they found a way to understand them." The Crystal Confederation representative spoke next, his body glowing with a mix of colors that showed both excitement and embarrassment. "Our best combat drones were not just defeated. They were studied, understood, and improved upon. The humans turned our own technology against us, not out of malice, but out of a desire to learn." Walker watched as more representatives stood to speak. Each one had a different perspective on what the Prometheus represented. The Mathematics Alliance saw beauty in its adaptive algorithms. The Biological Collective was fascinated by how it mimicked natural evolution. The energy beings were already discussing how its learning systems could revolutionize space travel. Lisa leaned close to Walker and whispered, "They finally understand what we were trying to show them." Walker nodded. The Prometheus was never meant to be just a warship. It was humanity's way of showing the galaxy that there was always another way to solve a problem. That strength didn't always mean having the biggest guns or the thickest armor. First speaker Reed raised his hands for attention. "The time has come to vote on Earth's admission to the Galactic Council. But first, Captain Walker, would you share with us why your ship was named Prometheus?" Walker stepped onto the central platform. In Earth mythology, Prometheus was a being who gave humans the gift of fire, not just as a weapon, but as a tool to build, to create, to understand the world around them. He gestured to his ship through the window. Like that ancient gift of fire, the Prometheus represents humanity's desire to learn, to adapt, to find new ways forward. We didn't build it to win wars, but to prevent them through understanding. The chamber was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves agreeing on something for the first time. The vote that followed was unanimous. Earth would join the Council. But that wasn't the end. As the celebration began, representatives from dozens of worlds approached Walker and his crew. They didn't want to copy the Prometheus. They wanted to work with humans to create something new. The energy beings offered to help improve the ship's power systems. The Crystal Confederation wanted to collaborate on new types of adaptive materials. Even Admiral Blackcrest requested permission to send his best engineers to study with Earth's scientists. "Captain," first speaker Reed said, approaching Walker with a smile, "I believe you've started something much bigger than just earning Earth a seat on the Council. You've shown us that true strength lies not in destroying what we don't understand, but in learning from it." Walker looked at his crew, then out at the Prometheus. The ship's hull seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it too was learning from this moment. "That's what humans do best," he said. We adapt, we learn, we grow, and now we can do it together with the entire galaxy. As the celebration continued around them, Walker knew that this was just the beginning. The Prometheus had opened the door to a new era of cooperation and innovation. Humanity had shown the galaxy a different path forward, one where understanding was more powerful than weapons, and where learning from each other was the greatest victory of all.